Guys, like, comment, subscribe, share the video, especially if you love college football as much as I do. Guys, I apologize for the low quality of my videos, especially since the beginning, basically. I am working on getting a camera so that way I can have better content and be taken more seriously. Clearly, I can get a lot more viewers. Because I believe the content itself that I make is really good and watchable. But because the quality isn't very good, that kind of hurts my channel. Not bad considering I got over 1,700 subscribers. So thank you guys for that. Because I'm about to be 4 years into YouTube come November. South Carolina. I liked their transfer portal and recruiting class. It wasn't elite, but I think it filled a lot of needs, specifically the offensive line, the defensive line, a lot of key defensive players that really help out and create some kind of pass rush, something South Carolina had a hard time doing this past year. What I've noticed with Shane Beamer, and I think he gets a little too much heat or not enough credit. I understand it. You got to understand where he's at. He's at South Carolina, okay? And this isn't a knock to South Carolina or anybody who likes South Carolina. I like South Carolina. I think they're a lot of fun to watch. And I think Shane Beamer is a great hire for that program. So I'm not being funny. I'm not disrespecting any of that. But the fact that outside of this coaching gig, he's never been a head football coach in his career in college football or anywhere, I don't believe. They were winning 1, 2, 3, 4 games a year at one point. Okay? And South Carolina really didn't have anything to work with. I remember he had to get a graduate assistant. He didn't even have a quarterback his first year. So that's really good. And listen, outside of the 5 and 7 year, these were his first 2 years. 7 and 6 with a Mayo Bowl win over North Carolina. And then 8 and 5 with a loss to Notre Dame in the Gator Bowl. But before that, knocked off number 5 Tennessee and a top 10 Clemson team. Both teams kept them out of the playoffs and put them in the Orange Bowl, and what I like to call it a South Carolina beat you bowl. So yeah, that's pretty good for Shane Beamer. He's always been good with special teams. He was actually Georgia's special teams coach at one point before coming to South Carolina. So I think he doesn't get enough credit, and I'm not saying he's a Kirby Smart or a Ryan Day or anything like that, but I think he's a really good coach, and it'll show this year because he went out and got a lot of good players, in my opinion. And South Carolina's a tough team anyway. They're good on the lines of scrimmage. They can play with anybody. So that really helps unless you're Ohio State. Toughen up, Buckeyes. Okay, they start off with Old Dominion, and then they go to Kentucky. I believe they win both those games. I mean, Kentucky's a tough team. They can be a tough place to play at night. Shane Beamer has never lost to Kentucky. Even this past year, he only won 5 games. He didn't lose to Kentucky. I don't think he loses this time either. They come back home to take on LSU. I have LSU going 11-1. Now, this game, it wouldn't surprise me if they did beat LSU. It's a home game. I don't know about the times and all that. It could be a night game. And South Carolina can be a tough place to play. And I asked number 5 Tennessee 2 years ago what happened. But I think that they lose this game just because I believe, as far as coaching goes, Brian Kelly is way further along as a head coach than Shane Beamer is. I think he might outcoach Shane Beamer in this game, and I believe his talent is just better. But because it's home, I believe they lose that game. I think it was 28-21 in the LSU video I made a few weeks ago. So they probably lose that game. I don't think they're better than LSU, but it should be a real fun game to watch. They come back home to take on Akron. I think they win that one, and then they stay at home. They're at home 3 weeks in a row, actually, and I have them losing to Ole Miss. Another winnable game, in my opinion. Lane Kiffin's been good at Ole Miss. He's had 2 double-digit winning seasons, a Sugar Bowl loss a few years ago, and he's coming off a Peach Bowl win over Penn State. But he's not, in my mind, he's not an elite coach. An elite coach would have beat Alabama within the 3 or 4 years he's been with Ole Miss by now, especially this past year. That was disappointing. And speaking of disappointing, I believe that defensive coordinator hired Golding from Alabama, that's with Ole Miss now, was another big disappointment. It's inexcusable. I know you're playing at Georgia, the number 1 team in the country, but it's inexcusable to give up 50-some points. I don't care where that game's being played, home, away, or at Mexico. It doesn't matter. And they found a way to do that. So until I see them actually step up and do something special, like go undefeated, because I'm going to do Ole Miss next, I think Ole Miss still wins just because they're a more talented team than South Carolina. But I wouldn't be shocked at all if South Carolina found a way to win this game at home. So I'm going to have a little star next to that one. So that my prediction for that could change, but not today. At Alabama, that's a loss, a home field advantage for Alabama. I think Alabama's just more talented than South Carolina, so I believe they win this game. At Oklahoma, I have them winning this game. Oklahoma, this is their first year along with Texas in the SEC. And while I believe Oklahoma is a good addition to the SEC, it'll clearly bring a whole nother fan base. It'll bring money to the conference. And I believe they'll be successful in the long run. This is their first time. They lost Dylan Gabriel to Oregon. And I don't really trust that quarterback that they got playing from the Alamo Bowl. I think he's a good player, Arnold. But he showed he's turnover prone. And if you want to compare him to another quarterback whose first major starting game was in a bowl game, go back to Cade Klubnik. Look what happened since then. He turned the ball over every game. And I think that will cost him this game, even if it's at home. I have South Carolina beating Oklahoma over there. That breaks their 2-game losing streak. And at this point, this is their 7th game. They're 4-3 at this point. Listen to the rest of this. Texas A&M at home. I have them winning that game. Last time they beat them, it was a home game, and Jimbo Fisher was there. And again, I know Mike Elko, I think he's a great coach for the long run for Texas A&M. He's been there before, and I know talent-wise, they're way more talented than South Carolina. But I believe he's going to have to go through some learning pains. I don't think he's going to have that team where he wants it to be in his very first year there. And the culture probably and clearly wasn't very good. A lot of players left that team during bowl season. I know he went and got more players and all that. That's great. But still, it's his first year. It's hard for me to see him do anything special within his first year. Now, 2 or 3 years later on down the line, probably. I think he's a great hire, but just no. And Shane Beamer, this is his 4th year in that program, and it's a home game. And the last time, like I said, they played them at home, they beat them. So I think they beat them again. At Vandy, home against Mizzou, and Wofford, all 3 wins. Even the Mizzou game. I know their quarterback's still there. They got one of the better pass catchers in the country. But that defense lost a lot of players to that draft. And this is a home game for South Carolina. So give me South Carolina. I have them losing at Clemson, but I wouldn't, and listen, that puts them at 8-4, according to my season prediction. But I would not be shocked at all if they won at least 10 games. They could beat either LSU or Ole Miss, because that's a home game. They could win one of those. And then they could win at Clemson. That is very possible, because Clemson has been struggling. But then they could still lose to Texas A&M. So at worst case here, they still lose the 4 I've had them losing. They lose to Texas A&M, lose to Mizzou maybe, 6-6 at worst. They could win 10 games, but I think a fair assessment, a fair prediction, in all honesty, would be 8-4, maybe even 9-3. I mean, again, I wouldn't be shocked if they beat LSU, Ole Miss, or Clemson. I don't think they'll beat all 3, but I wouldn't be shocked if they beat at least one of these. This would be a huge win for Shane Beamer moving forward with his program. And I had them with a winning season, so that's pretty much it, guys. 8-4 Gamecocks. Ole Miss, you're next.